Hi there, a very happy new year to all of you who are watching this talk. So, this is another talk of the 90 days of DevOps session. And in this talk, we'll be taking a look at how can you leverage Kubernetes to build a better cloud native development experience, right? So, there are a lot of things that we'll be covering in this talk. I can assure you one thing, like if you stay with me till the end of this talk, you will understand a lot of things from this talk. This is my guarantee to you. That being said, I think we should not make this too much longer and let's get started with a more introduction and what is this talk going to be about. All right. So the talk title says leveraging Kubernetes to build a better cloud native development experience. So a little bit introduction about myself. My name is Nitesh, and I am currently working as an intern at Nirmata company, which is the creator of the Kyverno project. I have also worked as a Linux Foundation mentee with the Kubernetes release engineering team. I was a KubeCon speaker. I spoke at KubeCon Chicago, which was my first KubeCon, and that too as a speaker. I think that I'm also the GitHub Campus Expert, which is a student community that is affiliated with the GitHub. So at the end of this talk, you can reach out to me on any of the social media platform, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm mostly active on Twitter, but LinkedIn is also a good option for you. So you can reach out to me on Nitesh Rai. And yeah, let's get started with this amazing talk now. I know I'm saying about this thing. All right. Let's take a look at what is the problem statement. So just focus on what I say now, and you will understand what I mean. I'll give you a scenario here. Now, so when Kubernetes was actually built in the year 2014 or before that, a lot of things were being focused on how can you deploy your workloads on the Kubernetes, right? As a developer, the main stress was deploying your workloads on the Kubernetes, right? Maybe you want to use Docker containers, maybe you want to use a deployment, and a bunch of other things like that. But the main pain for a developer was deploying your workloads on the Kubernetes. And then a lot of things happened on the time, like Rancher desktop came, Rancher gave you some solutions. Similarly, a lot of companies came and they provided you with solution. But so that time it was being focused on how can you deploy on your cluster, and that is the reason you also see like Kubernetes the hard way by Kelsey Hightower is also a very good option you can get started with, right? So that time it was like that. But as the year goes on, as a developer, you try to focus mostly on writing code, right? You want to avoid unnecessary puzzles, hassles, or whatever the things when you're deploying on Kubernetes. Now, I'm not saying Kubernetes is bad, but there's a pain when you're trying to deploy your workload on Kubernetes. I'll give you an example. So, imagine your business got an idea, right? So what is the thing that another thing that you will do? You'll have some SRS document. You'll craft your SRS document. You'll list all the specifications and everything in that SRS document. Okay. Um, After that is done, you'll start coding, or your development team will start coding. And now I'm just giving an example. So assume this is the development team that has started coding, right? And now the application has been built. What as a developer, what is the next struggle that you're going to face? The next struggle that you're going to face is deploying your application on a Docker container, or maybe any container of any type. And once the application has been deployed on Docker container, you want to scale it up. Now you look for some orchestration tools like anything, something like Docker Swarm or maybe Kubernetes, although Kubernetes is very preferred. So you'll use Kubernetes. All right. And now your application is running very well. Your application is running well and your business is getting profit. But now think of it. Later on with time, you want some features to be implemented, or a general scenario. What if you want, what if you find that your application that is deployed inside your Kubernetes cluster has some bugs? What will you do? Take a look back. You wrote an application, then what is the thing you're going to do? You'll write a Docker file for it, or a Docker compose file, and then you will create an image out of it. And then one of your team member will push it to the registry. right? And then one of your team member will pull it from the registry, and then that image will be used inside a Kubernetes cluster, and that's how your application is going to be deployed. This is a pain. So just think of this process that I have talked about. You are writing your application, now you're writing a Docker file, now you are building an image, you are pushing that image, you're pulling that image, and now you're deploying it on a Kubernetes cluster. So the thing is that with time, you want new features to be implemented, and the chances are very high that the application that has been deployed on the Kubernetes cluster might have some bugs as well, right? There could be any chances like you might get some bugs as well, or you might want to add some features. Let's assume the case for the features. Okay, so you thought like, now I want to add some features. How can I do that? Your team again starts coding, and now again the same process. Your team has started coding, right? And now you're not sure. Think of it, what I'm saying. Your team has started coding, but your team is not pretty much sure, like, okay, how will this look like in production? How will this change look like in production? Anything could happen. There could be dependency issues and a lot of things like that. Any bare minimum thing could happen that could lead to an error, right? So your whole application is going to get down. Okay, but what is the thing you will do? You'll write your code, right? You'll again write the Docker file, or maybe update your Docker file. You'll again build the image. You'll push it to the registry. You're going to pull it from the registry as a developer, and then you're going to use that new image inside your Kubernetes cluster again. But here's a twist: now your application is not working. Your application now that you want, in which you added some more features, is not working anymore. What is the error? Now you'll see it in the production. Okay, wait, this is the error that I have got. Now what you will do, you will roll out, or sorry, you will roll back to the previous version of your application. That is correct. But this chain of, even if you use CI/CD pipeline to maybe pull it from the Docker, we generally want to avoid it. I just want, is there a, so now think by the first principles. What is the problem? Like, you see, like this thing of pushing to the registry and then pulling it, and then again not sure how your changes look like in production. Are you really sure of how your changes look like in production, or what will happen? What are the dependency issues if you add this piece of code? A lot of things could happen. So now think by the first principle, what could be the problem statement here? So is there any solution you can get? Now think by the first principles. The main problem that is, I just want to see how my application that is running inside a Kubernetes cluster will look if I deploy it in the production. Isn't it great if I could get some preview environments for it? Means, is there a way I can get a preview environment for my application running inside a Kubernetes cluster? Think of it. I make some changes on my local machine, but the application that is running inside the Kubernetes cluster will also synchronizes those changes that are present on my local, so that I could get to see, okay, if I make some changes on my local machine, these are the changes that will be reflected on the preview environment. Hence, these are the changes that will be present on my production. So I'll get to know, okay, this is not the right time when I should build an image. I should make some more changes to in order to resolve that error, right? So this is generally the problem statement that's come in. So now, is there a way we can get preview environment for an application running on Kubernetes cluster? Or just think of a lot of things here. You're writing Docker files. Is there a way I can deploy my application on the Kubernetes cluster if I just have Docker files? That sounds like an interesting thing, right? So who is going to solve this problem for you? Comes into picture a very great tool which is called as Okteto. It's not a promotion video, but I just love using this tool, and I just want you to know how can you use preview environments to build a better cloud native development experience when you're working with your application on Kubernetes. Sorry, when you're working with your application that is deployed in Kubernetes cluster. All right. I think let's get started. So it's all the demo time now, and I'm pretty much bad on how I make the slides, but I just want you to give an overview on what is the problem statement. Let's take a look at what is a demo now. Okay, and I'm pretty much sure you all will be very you all will understand what is the problem Okteto is trying to solve and how can you even contribute to that project. So I'll share a screen, and also you could see this thing as well, Okteto. So it's not again a professional video, but thanks to Ramiro, you're building a great project, man, and thanks to the entire team of Okteto. All right, let's start sharing the screen. Okay. All right. Now we are at a website called as Okteto.com, and you generally have a thing like you can just explore through it, right? All the links will be, I think, provided by the Michael under the description, but I'll make sure that it is provided um, under the description somehow. All right. So your application has been deployed on the Kubernetes cluster, and now you want to see some changes. Okay, you want to basically see some changes on how your application that is deployed on the Kubernetes cluster will look like in production, right? So Okteto, if you go through Okteto.com, you just go to the docs, right? And he's a very good starting guide. And Okteto just comes in two things. You can also use Okteto CLI from your local machine, and Okteto has also its own cloud, which is called as Okteto Cloud. Although it says that this free individual tier of Okteto SaaS will discontinue from January 15, 2024. But you can just learn more about the things, and you can definitely contact the team regarding this thing as well if you plan to use Okteto after stock. All right. Don't worry about this thing. We'll take a look at this later on. All right. So preview environments is what? If you go through here, you can just click here and you'll understand what a preview environment means. It just says that preview will allow you to include a live preview of your changes on every pull request. This is another feature of Okteto. So when you try to learn Okteto, more about Okteto after this talk, you will understand about what does this statement actually mean. Okay, so you make some changes to your application, and all you get you'll instantly get a live preview on how your changes looks like in production in the form of a pull request as well. But we'll cover this maybe in some other part. But let's take a look at what is the problem that Okteto tries to solve now. Okay, so I just want you to go through this. I'll just clone this application, right? So this is just a movies with compose application that generally means like this is an application in which it's a React based front end. So the front end portion is written in React, right? API is written using Node.js. So you see different services of an application, right? Database is being used as MongoDB, a reverse proxy as Nginx, and then a lot of other things as well that are being used in this basic simple application. But you can see this application contains a bunch of services like API, front end, reverse proxy, a lot of different services. And now if you deploy this application on the Kubernetes cluster and assume you get a bug somewhere. Now you want to see how these changes get deployed in the Kubernetes cluster. You want to get a preview of your changes. How will you do that? You can do it with the help of Okteto. So make sure that you install Okteto CLI command. You can just go through the install Okteto quick start guide. You can also go through the quick start guide and just install Okteto. I have installed Okteto CLI, so it's all good, right? Once you're done with this, you can also make your account on the cloud.okteto.com. I've already made an account, and so there are different set of commands that you will use now. Now think of it, what is going to happen. I have deployed it here, right? So now I'm just going to do it something like this, okay? All right. If I say, all right, this is the same thing. So if I go through a Docker compose file, you will just want you to explore the code base. Like it's a Docker compose file that has been written that says there are different services like front-end services there, API services there, and a lot of other things like that. Similarly, if you go through the API, you can see like API service has its own Docker file, right? But why do we need a Docker file for this service? You'll understand in a bunch more detail. Then front-end service has its own Docker file. Reverse proxy has its own Docker file. What if you deploy this application on the Kubernetes cluster? How will this application look like? Right, you can definitely do that. But I just want you to go through this application and not see what is going to happen now. So the first thing is I will be in this directory, right? I've already installed Okteto. I'll deploy this application on the Okteto cloud. I want to see how my application looks like in production. That is, I want to get a preview of a particular service. Which service? Maybe call it as API service or front end service. And what is this? What is a command that will be used to, you know, get these services up, or maybe uh, deploy these services on the Okteto cloud? Which is Okteto cloud? This is Okteto cloud. Okay, now think of it. So the first command that you need to do is Okteto context, right? You can just use your context. I'll say the cloud oktetocontext.com, right? Once it's done, Okteto has already using my context, right? I'll say Okteto up. Let's see now what is going to happen. So what is going to happen now? See, it's saying that it's using my this account as a context, right? And now it's checking images. So now internal, what Okteto is doing, it is trying to build those images. It is saying where is Docker file located. It's now building this image of API. Then it is going to build front end image. Then it is going to build reverse proxy image. I'll tell you why it is building these images. Now you see deploying compose. So it's trying to deploy this application here on the Okteto cloud. You see now it is deploying this application on the Okteto cloud so that you can get a preview environment here. Okay. Let's wait. Like only thing that we can do right now is wait probably. All right. So yeah, it's saying processing, and now CC. So it has created all the services: init, MongoDB, movies created services. Then it will also create the endpoints. Endpoints are generally the URL that you can use to access your application, right? And then it has created the MongoDB service. It has created the front end service. How is it creating the service? It is creating the service internally with the help of this Okteto up command. It will just it will go through your code base and it will look for the Docker files, or maybe the Docker compose file as well, and it will try to set these files on the Okteto cloud, and it will make sure that you get a preview environment when these applications are deployed, when this application is deployed on your Okteto cloud, right? If you want to deploy a specific service on your Okteto cloud, you can use it with the help of command Okteto deploy and then the service name, such as Okteto deploy API, right? But don't worry, it will still ask me, I think, which service would you like to deploy on Okteto cloud, right? And now it's pulling the front end image. If I go here, you'll see this thing. So it's saying pulling images, and see all these services has been created. So just wait, it is loading. Yeah. Now it's saying waiting for services to be ready. Let's wait for some more time. Okay. Yeah. So it's saying compose successfully deployed. This application has been successfully deployed. But Nitish, I don't see any preview endpoints. You will see. You see endpoints? If I click here endpoints, now you'll see something. This is how your application looks like in production. This is how your application looks like in production. And now it's saying select which development container to activate. This is an interesting thing. What has happened is that Okteto has internally deployed these services inside a container. That is the reason you see here Docker file. It has deployed this application inside a container. It has built the image of an API, and then it is running inside as a container. It is running inside the Okteto cloud as a container. So now it is saying, Okteto is also saying, Nitish, which service would you like to access from your terminal? Is it the API service or is it the front end service? I'll say API service. Enter. Now it's saying checking images to build. It has selected API. Now see what is going to happen. You can see like our application is, this is how our application looks like in as a preview. Okay. Now it's saying attaching persistent volumes. Okay. Let's see now. All right. It's pulling image and you can see API. You can see like the logs that are being present here. All right. And now you see one thing, server running on port 8080. That is basically the server that is running your application on. All right. Um, yeah. And now you see this thing. But here's a twist. This is my application. Now I see that this application contains some bug. What is a bug? For a user for a user Kindy, whatever the name is, right? Um, the movies and the continue watching is same. I don't want that. I mean, this user could watch any movies, but it is showing the replication of the movies actually. So we need to fix this bug. I'm going to fix this bug. I'll just probably go to the API, and then I'll go to server.js file, probably somewhere here, and it is saying db.collection movies. I'll just say here watching. So I just resolved a basic bug, right? But now see what is going to happen. Okteto internally inside sees that there has been some changes made here. So now in the preview environment, if I refresh this, it is going to fetch those changes. Refresh. See, this means that what Okteto has done, Okteto has simply done is something like this thing. It has seen that Nitish has made some changes. Now, it is basically what I can say in simple terms is what it's doing is that since it is running inside a container, so it's making sure that all the changes that you make on your local system synchronizes with the changes with your application that is running inside a container. This application, that API service, is running inside a container. You see here when I selected API selected, image was built, and now this is running inside of a container, right? So this is basically a preview environment that you have generally got from Okteto, and this is just a mere glimpse of it. You can This is just a mere glimpse of it. If you want to, if you can just go through the logs, you'll see like I have made some changes here. You go through API, it shows that some changes have been made, right? So you can definitely use Okteto. So another cool thing about Okteto is that you if you have Docker file already being written, it will automatically Okteto will automatically deploy your application on the Okteto cloud, and it will give you a preview environment. Okay, that is a pretty interesting feature. Imagine you have made an application and it only contains a Docker file. Can you deploy this application on Kubernetes somehow? I mean, think of it. Can you? There might be some ways, but I think probably not, right? You'll have to write the Kubernetes manifest, and you'll then have to expose services and whatnot. Just have a Docker file or Docker compose file written, and just run the Okteto up command. Okteto will automatically see what are the services. It will deploy it on the Okteto cloud, and then it will tell you, Nitish, how this is how your application looks like in production. And once you get a preview environment as a developer, you can make some changes to your application. That's how simple it is. And once it is done, build an image, push it to the registry, pull it from the registry, and then deploy it in the Kubernetes cluster. So constantly making changes and don't know what is the changes look like in production is pretty much a bad idea, and you want to avoid that thing. So that is basically about it. Just at the last, I want to make you guys aware of Okteto more. So Okteto is an open source project. Okteto CLI is an open source project. So you can see a bunch of good things that the community is doing. Right, you can go to Okteto/Okteto, and you can just go through the code base. If you're pretty much interested in contributing as well, you can definitely contribute to their project, right? And the team is doing amazing work. Okteto also has a community. If you want to go through, okay, I think, yeah, Okteto community. So you can also go to the Okteto community here, and you can post your doubt if you get somewhere here, right? There's also a channel on Okteto which is hashtag Okteto on the Kubernetes Slack. You can also access that. And if you get any doubts, you can definitely ask in the channels, ask in the Slack channel, maybe raise your concerns in the Okteto community itself. And yeah, I would definitely recommend all of you to go through Okteto. It is definitely a great tool, and you should try to understand what is the thing that are internal happening. And I'm pretty much sure once you go through the Okteto documentation, you'll understand that it offers bunch of other things, bunch more things than what I have told you right now. So explore the Okteto and you will understand that this tool could really be very amazing for you all. And that was a pretty simple demo for you all. But and that's it for your talk. It's pretty much simple. But if you have any doubt, feel free to reach out to me on maybe on the Kubernetes Slack, on any Kubernetes Slack, and or any social media accounts such as LinkedIn or Twitter. My username is Natish5. And thank you, Michael, for giving this opportunity to present this talk. And thanks to the Okteto team for doing such an amazing work. It was amazing shooting this video, and I hope you all have enjoyed listening to this one. Thank you, and a very happy new year to you all.